We're going over Anne Bradstreet's poetry.
All right, we'll start with verses upon the burning of her house. If you don't mind, would one of you read it? Or I can read it if you don't want to. I don't want to. Who was the partner? Haley. Okay, I couldn't tell if you said Haley or Haley, and I didn't remember. Do one of y'all want to read it? No? Okay, I'll read it. That's all right. Okay, everybody follow along. In silent night, when rest I took, for sorrow near I did not look. I awakened, was with thundering noise, in piteous shrieks of dreadful voice. That fearful sound of fire and fire. Let no man know is my desire. I starting up, the light did spy, and to my God my heart did cry, to straighten me in my distress, and not to leave me succorless. Then coming out, behold a space, the flame consumed my dwelling place. And when I could no longer look, I blessed his grace that gave and took, that laid my goods now in the dust. Yeah, yea, probably. So, yea, so it was, and so 'twas just. It was his own, it was not mine. For be it that I should repine, he might of all justly bereft, but yet sufficient for us left. When by the ruins oft I passed, my sorrowing eyes aside did cast, and here and there the places spy, where oft I sate and long did lie. Here stood that trunk, and there that chest, there lay that store I counted best. My pleasant things in ashes lie, in them behold no more shall I. Under the roof no guest shall sit, nor at thy table eat of it. No pleasant talk shall e'er be told, nor things recounted done of old. No candle e'er shall shine in me, no bridegroom's voice e'er heard shall be. In silence ever shalt thou lie, adieu, all's vanity. Then straight I gin my heart to chide, and did thy wealth on earth abide. Didst fix thy hope on mouldering dust, the arm of flesh didst make thy crust. Raise up thy thoughts above the sky, that dunghill mist away may fly. Thou hast a house on high erect, framed by that mighty architect, with glory richly furnished, stands permanent, though this be fled. It's purchased and paid for too by him who hath enough to do. A price so vast as is unknown, yet by his gift is made thine own. There's wealth enough, I need no more. Farewell, my pelf, farewell, my store. The world no longer let me love, my hope and treasure lies above. Okay, break it down. What y'all come up with?
So there was a fire
Okay.
in her house, and she got out, and then when she was like remembering all of this stuff, she realized that she was just too focused on the material things, and that there was more treasure for her and in the married life.
Excellent. Okay, very good. And this really did happen to her. Her home burned down. I think I might have mentioned that yesterday. When her house burned, this was about 6 years, I think, before she died, that the house burned down. And they, because her husband, she and her father had been the governor at various times during the time that they lived there. And I believe that they moved like 3 times, and I believe the last place that they ended up, which is where the home was, I believe it was in Andover, but I may be wrong on that. I think that's correct. And they had, I think, a fairly nice house, for that time period, because again, her husband was important leader in the colony, and, they were afforded, I guess, a little bit nicer things. But when her house burned, she had about 500 books. And so that's a lot of books. That's a lot of books for now, but you can imagine back in this time period, that was a lot. So, she lost a lot of things that were very dear to her, no doubt. So just a few lines here. So they awoke to the sound of fire, fire, let no man know is my desire. What do you think she means there? Let no man know is my desire. She's hoping that nobody else ever has to go through that. So, waking up in the middle of the night with people screaming, fire, fire. And to my God, my heart did cry, so she's prayerful, as she's, I'm sure, in shock and trying to get out. And by the way, nobody was injured. I don't know how many children they would have had living at home at this point. They may have all been moved out, so I don't really know. But in any case, nobody was injured in the fire, but it did destroy the whole house. So, she was praying to God, don't leave me helpless. Sufferless means helpless. So once the house is burned down, the flame consumed my dwelling place, and when I could no longer look, I blessed his grace that gave and took, that laid my goods now in the dust. So kind of like what Haley said, she's thinking to herself that she's blessed because no one is harmed. So she feels herself that she's blessed, and really, she kind of repeats this a couple of times. She's thinking to herself, God blessed me with this nice home, but it really was not ever mine anyway. So it was his to take, it was never mine. It was his own, and it was not mine. So far be it, I should repine. So really, she's saying that she doesn't really have a reason to feel sad and be upset about this. Really, she should feel blessed. But yet sufficient for us left. And so, even though everything was taken pretty much in the fire, and I have read this, they were able to stay and live with neighbors until they were able to rebuild to build a new home. And that makes a lot of sense because remember, these early Puritan communities were all about, having each other's back and helping each other, just like, John Smith with the Jamestown colony. That was a work for food colony. This one is not these were not work for food colony. However, if you remember a model of Christian charity, it was all about, John Winthrop said, it's all about what I have is also my neighbor's and vice versa. So they really, the neighbors in the colony community rallied around them and made sure that they didn't lack for anything. So that's what she's saying there. Even though their home is taken, God left sufficient for them. So every time she passes by the ruins where her house were ashes, she thinks about, there's where my trunk was, and my table, and my chest, and this sort of thing. And she knows that she'll no longer see them, and then, behold, no more shall I. And then, even thinking about under the roof, no guest shall sit, or at thy table eat of it. So she's thinking about all those things, the happy times in the house, and remembers that that's not going to be happening anymore. No bridegroom's voice ere heard shall be. So that can be taken a couple of ways. That could mean her husband. I've also heard, again, remember a very pious, religious woman, being a very, very devout Puritan. The bridegroom could also be referring to Jesus and reading the Bible and this sort of thing. That would not happen anymore. In silence ever shalt thou lie. Then she says, adieu. That means farewell, goodbye, all vanity. So then she thinks to herself, when she's thinking like that it's really vain of her to be, missing the material things, which is what I'll pretty much say. And so then she starts, kind of chiding herself that she shouldn't be thinking that way. And did thy wealth on earth abide? Did fix thy hope on moldering dust? The arm of flesh did make thy trust. So, things of the flesh and material things are not really what's important in life. Raise up thy thoughts above the sky, that dunghill mist away may fly. Thou hast a house on high erect, framed by that mighty architect. What does that mean? Thou hast a house on high erect, framed by that mighty architect. What is she saying there? What would be the house on high erect? Mm-hmm. Yes, heaven. That's exactly right. So her belief was that she had a house in heaven waiting for her, framed by that mighty architect. Mighty architect would be God. With glory richly furnished, stands permanent. So her home in heaven that's been framed by God or put there by God is a permanent home, while the home that she had on earth was not permanent. It was fleeting. It's purchased and paid for too by him who hath enough to do. Who is she referring to when she says it's purchased and paid for by him who hath enough to do? Who do you think she's talking about there? That's exactly right. She's saying that Jesus paid for my home that I'll have in heaven, that'll be a permanent home one day. A price so vast as is unknown, so humans cannot even begin to think or understand the price that Jesus paid so that we can have a heavenly home, is what she's saying. Yet by his gift is made thine own, there's wealth enough, I need no more. So she has everything that she needs on earth. She doesn't need any more. The world no longer let me love. My hope and treasure lies above. So she's saying that her hope is not here on earth, but her hope is in the home, the heavenly home, that will be permanent, that she'll have one day. So this is really, I like this poem. It's really a nice poem. But I think it also very much, kind of lets us inside, the way that this woman thought, as a very strict Puritan. Remember yesterday I talked about how there were times, especially early on, when she very much questioned her faith and wondered why she had gone, how did she end up in this wilderness? And I mean, I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been. And, she was having children too all that time. Can you imagine having birthing 8 children? Now, I think she had them in a 12-year span of time. Oh, well, maybe, is that possible? I don't know. They were like about a year apart. Well, maybe 8 or 10 years. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But they were quick, like one right after the other. Can you imagine having little babies? And she was already kind of a weak woman physically in the wilderness. Her husband was gone a lot of the time. I can't even imagine the tough life that this woman had. But she certainly had her faith. So anyway, nice poem. All right, let's go on. Speaking of having children, before the birth of one of her children. Who had that one? All right. When y'all want to read it?
Oh, yes, well, I can read.
Okay, good.
Before the birth of one of the children, all things within this fading world have an end. Adversity does still unfold its hand. No tie so strong, no friend so dear and sweet, but with death, parting blow is sure to meet. The sentence passes most irrevocable, a common thing yet, oh, inevitable. I've seen my dear death betting my steps attend. I've soon made thee die, not to lose thy friend. We both are ignorant, yet love bids me, these farewell lines to recommend to thee, that when that not some time that made us one, I may see thine, whose in effect am thine. And if I see not half my days that stew, what nature would thou grant to years in youth? There are many faults that well you know, I have let thee enter in my oblivious grave. If any word the value worthy, let that live freshly in my memory. And when thou feelst no grief, and as I know harm, yet love thy dead, who long lay in thine arms. And when thy loss shall be repaid with gains, look to my little days, my dear remains. And if thou love thyself or lovest me, these O protect from things injury. And if chance to thine eyes shall bring this verse, with some sigh honor my absent curse. And kiss this paper for thy love's dear sake, who with salt tears this last farewell to take.
Okay, thanks for reading that. All right, what did y'all come up with?
So, what we came up with that is the lady, and she is scared. She's about to have the childbirth, and she's scared she's gonna die too. So she's writing to her husband, basically saying, "Bye, I'm about to die."
Yeah, good. That's right. So this, even though it's kind of almost a little bit misleading, the title before the birth of one of her children, it almost makes it sound like maybe she'd be writing this to the unborn child or something, but she's writing it to her husband. And she really, remember again, she was weak and had a lot of health issues. And I think it was like, she had 8 kids, I think it was the seventh child or something. But she really felt like, this was almost throughout her whole pregnancy, she really felt like she was gonna die during childbirth. Probably really felt like it during the childbirth, but even before that, she really thought that she would not live through it. And, so this is and really, this is kind of a love letter of sorts to her husband. She very much loved her husband. And so that's exactly right, what she just said. She's saying, no tie so strong, no friend so dear and sweet. So that's, they're so close, they're best friends. But with death's parting blow is sure to meet. So at some point, one of them is going to pass and leave, their union. The sentence passed is most irrevocable, a common thing yet oh so inevitable. It's just inevitable that one of them will at some point die. How soon, my dear, death may my steps attend. So it may be soon. How soon it may be thy lot to leave thy friend. We both are ignorant, yet love bids me. These farewell lines to recommend to thee that when that the union of their marriage, becomes untied, that knot that made them one for marriage, and may seem mine who in effect am none. And if I see not half my days that's due, so she died soon, before her days, died early in her life. What nature would, God grant to yours and you. What nature would, God grant to yours and you. The many thoughts that well you know, I have let be interred in my oblivious grave. So she's saying, I've had many thoughts, but I hope that you'll be able to overlook those. And really, when she's talking about what nature would, God grant to yours and you, who is yours and you? She's talking about her husband, but who else?
Her unborn baby.
Yeah, probably the children, but who else could it be? You and yours. She's talking about if he were to remarry, and he actually did remarry. She died at 60. He was about 9 years older than her, but he lived, my goodness, to be on up in his 80s or maybe even around 90, which is really a long time, especially back then. But he remarried about 4 years after she died. That was the norm. Men, in fact, the fact that he was 4 years was probably a pretty long time. Men, oftentimes, especially if there were children, the mother died and left little children, often within a year, the Puritan men were remarried. And it usually was to a woman. When we read Edward Taylor, starting tomorrow, he remarried 3 times. And the last one was way much younger than he was. But it's because they need help with the children, for one thing. I'm not saying that they don't love each other, but, it's, the relationship is different. They're helpmates, and the man needs someone to help with the children. So she's also talking about to you and yours, but she's saying that I hope if any worth or virtue were in me, let that live freshly in my memory. So she's saying, if there's anything good that you can remember of me, I hope that's how you'll remember me. Don't forget the good things in me. And when thou feelest no grief, as I no harm. So she's saying at some point when you grieve for me and you no longer feel this, grief, I don't want you to grieve the rest of your life over me, is what she's saying. I would not expect you to do that. Yet love thy dead who long lay in thine arms. So she's saying, even after you've gone through the grieving process, I hope you will always love me. And when my loss shall be repaid with gains, look at my little babe, my dear remains. So she's saying, I hope that every time that you look at our children, you'll remember me, because I am a part of them. And if thou love thyself or lovest me, if you ever loved me, protect from stepdame's injury. So she's telling him, I don't, have any bad, I wouldn't expect you not to remarry, but I just ask that if you do remarry, that you make sure that the stepmother never harms my children. That's what she's telling him. It better be a good woman that will be good to my children. And if chance to thine eye shall bring this verse with whom some satisfied honor my absent years. Well, anyway, then she says, who with salt tears this last farewell did take. So she dies, she does die, and she thinks that she will. But she hopes that when he sees this, his tears, will overflow and then he will kiss, the paper, the letter, because it's a love letter to him. That's what this is exactly. Well, she's also giving him some directives, but make sure you marry a good woman who will not harm my children, but it is a love letter for him. So, really, I don't like this poem. It's really a good poem. All right, good. Let's go to the next one. By night when others soundly slept. Who's had that one? All right, when y'all want to read it? Okay.
For a night when others soundly slept, and held out one like evening rest, my waking eyes were open tight, and soon while I found his rest. I sought him whom my soul did love, with tears I sought him earnestly. He bowed his ear down from above, in vain I did not seek their cry. My hungry soul he filled with bread, he in his bottle put my tears. My smarting wounds washed in his blood, and banished them my doubtful fears. But to my Savior shall I give, who freely hath done this for me. I'll serve him here whilst I shall live, and losing to eternity.
Yeah, I think that would be love. They just, some words they spell differently. F is always S, or maybe it's the other way around, I don't remember. But anyway, B's or W's and all, I think that means love. Okay, good. So what did y'all come up with for analysis?
I got that she was like expressing her love for God. Like she was like upset about some things, but she like went to God about it,
Mm-hmm.
and like just saying that like he takes away her sadness and pain, and that that she repays like in the last part when she says, I'll serve him here with I shall live. I got like she repays him. She repays God by like serving him.
Okay, very good. I absolutely agree. I think that, I'm kind of taking it like you are, that, while others are soundly sleeping, there's something that wakes her up or is keeping her up, probably some problem or worry or sadness or something. And so, my waking eyes were open kept, and so was the lie. I found it best. I sought him whom my soul did love. So yeah, I would say that she, while she's awake, she decides to pray. And so this is, she's saying, with tears I sought him earnestly, so she's seeking the help of God or to help calm her soul, and he did. And bowed his ear down from above, in vain I did not seek or cry, my hungry soul he filled with good. So, and then, that's right, she's thinking, how in the world would I ever be able to repay God who loves me so much? The only thing I can do is to love him and to serve him. So, very good. Okay, to my dear and loving husband. More love poetry. She likes to love poetry. But it's usually though.
Okay, I guess I'm reading it.
All right, go ahead.
If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then we. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare with me, ye woman if you can. I prize thy love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the east doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense.
Yeah, that's right, recompense. Mm-hmm.
Thy love is such I can no way repay. The heavens reward thee manifold, I pray. Then while we live in love, let's so persevere that when we live no more, we may live ever.
Okay. What did y'all come up with?
That she really loves him. Like, that's the favorite.
Like nothing can stop her from loving him. I
Okay.
said that, and no one loves their man more than she loves hers.
Huh? Yeah, she really throws down the gauntlet, doesn't she? If ever wife was happy in a man, compare with me, you women, if you can. So she's, if anybody thinks they love their husband more than I do, then, let's see it. And,
At the end, she says that, wait, you love them more who they will ever, means like after they died, she thinks they're gonna live together.
mhm, that's right. That they will, one day meet, when one of them dies, or they both eventually die, that they will be, husband and wife, or reunite in heaven and live together forever. Yeah, it's a love poem that ever was one. My prize I love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the east has passed. So, thank you very much for her husband. Okay, good. Ooh, I like this one. This is a good one too. Now this one, I would say this one and the prologue, these are pretty tough. Who had the author to her book? Okay. What did y'all come up with? Well, first of all, one of y'all want to read it? Haley? Okay, I'll read it. Let me put on my glasses. Thou ill-formed offspring of my feeble brain, who after birth didst by my side remain, till snatched from midst thy friends less wise and true, who thee abroad exposed to public view, made thee in rags, talking to thee pressed to trudge, where errors were not lessened, all may judge. At thy return my blushing was not small, my rambling brat in print should mother call. I cast thee by as one unfit for life. Thy visage was so irksome in my sight. Yet being mine own, at length affection would thy blemishes amend, if so I could. I washed thy face, but more defects I saw, and rubbing off a spot still made a flaw. I stretched thy joints to make thee even feet, yet still thou runnest more hobbling than is meet. In better dress to trim thee was my mind, but not save homespun cloth thou house I find. In this array amongst vulgars mayest thou roam. In critics' hands beware thou dost not come, and take thy way where yet thou art not known. If for thy father asketh, say thou hast none. And for thy mother, she alas is poor, which caused her thus to send me out of door. Okay, this is one big long, it's almost like a, kind of almost like a riddle in a way. All right, go ahead. How did y'all break it down for us?
Well, she's referring to her brother, her brother-in-law.
Yes.
They punished her work, and then she focuses down disappointment in it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, she is, thou ill-formed offspring of my feeble brain. She's talking to her book, her work, her poems. They're like her offspring, all right? And who after birth did by my side remain. So once she's written them, they're by her side, they remain. She'll snatch from me by friends less wise and true, who be abroad exposed to public view. And that's exactly right. She's talking about her brother-in-law that took some of her poems with him. We went back to England and had them published. Exactly what she's talking about. Remember, I told you guys she was really pretty angry with him for doing that because she never wrote any of her poetry, with it in mind that she would have them published. So that's exactly what she's talking about. He took them overseas and exposed to public view, made thee in rags talking about paper, halting to the press to trudge where errors were not lessened, all may judge. She's saying she didn't even have time to go in and correct some things. So the errors and everything, the blemishes, it was all out there for everyone to see. At thy return, so when he brings them back, my blushing was not small. She was embarrassed of the poems that he took and had published because she didn't have them cleaned up. My rambling brat in print should mother call. So the rambling brat would be the book of poetry that her brother-in-law had published. I cast thee by as one unfit, they're unfit, and her poems are unfit for light. Thy visage was so irksome in my sight. So visage would be the way something looked. And it was so irksome to her. So she didn't like it. She felt like they were unfit for life. Yet being mine own, at length affection would. However, they're her poems, just like her children. Even if you have ugly kids, they're yours, you're going to love them. Thy blemishes amend, if so if I could go in and fix those blemishes in my poetry, I would. I'd wash thy face, but more defects I saw. So every time she tries to clean it up, she sees more defects. So it's never, and this is just, that's what writers do. They never get it where they really want it. And rubbing off a spot, there is still a flaw. I like this part. I stretch thy joints to make thee even feet, yet still thou runnest more hobbling than is meet. Feet and meat, that refers to poetry. So she tried to stretch it and make it, the lines more feet or whatever, but it didn't ever quite work. And better dress the trinity was my mind, but not have, say, homespun cloth in thy house I find in this array amongst vulgars mayest thou roam. In critics' hands beware thou dost not come. So she's talking about then, the critics are having their say and having a go at it. And they don't like things about it. And, that is hurtful because, that's like her baby. This book of poetry. And take thy way where thou art not known. And if for thy father asketh, say, thou hadst none. So if you're asked if you had a father, no, you didn't. You just had a mother. That was me because I created you. And for thy mother, she alas is poor, which caused her thus to send me out of door. So she finally she's the mother, she's the writer. She finally just has to send it away because she needs some money. And she needs it published, hoping that it will bring her some money. That's exactly what it means at the end. So this is just, one big metaphor for her book of poetry. Is what it's talking about. The author to her book. And the book is like her child. Fine, I like that one too. All right, let's do prologue. You have prologue? You may have, oh, that's right, prologue. Let me get my copy.
That's wrong.
Yeah, it's a long one. Oh, wait. That's not right. Let me get my copy. My copy of this one. Okay. Who wants to read it? No? Who was, somebody else? Oh, David, okay. You want to read it, David?
The song of wars, of captains and of kings, of cities founded, commonwealths begun, for my mean pen are two superior things, or having all, or each their base has run, let poets and historians set these forth. My obscure lines shall not so dim their worth. But when my wandering eyes and envious heart, great Sparta's secret lines do read o'er, fool I do grudge the muses did not part, with him and me that overfluent store. A bard can do what a bard will, but simple I praise my wit still. Whose schoolboy's tongue no reports do we expect, nor yet a sweet consort from broken strings, nor perfect beauty wears a main defect. My foolish, broken, blemished muse so sings, and this to mend, alas, no art is able, 'cause nature made it so irreparable. Nor can I, like that fluent, sweet-tongued Greek, who lisped at first in future times steep flame. By art he gladly found what he did seek, a full acquittal of his striving pain. Art can do much, but this maxim's most sure, a weak or wounded brain admits no cure. I am obnoxious to each carping tongue, who says my hand a needle better fits. A poet's pen all scorn I should thus long, but such despite and cast unto no wit. If what I do prove well, it won't advance. They'll say it's stolen, or else it was by chance. But sure, the antique Greeks were far more mild, else of our sex, why famed those nine, and posing made Calliope's own child. So amongst the rest they placed the arts divine. But this week not, they will full soon untie. The Greeks did not but play the fools and lie. Let Greeks be Greeks, and women what they are. Men have presidency and still excel. It is but vain unjustly to wage war. Men can do best, and women know it well. Preeminence in all, and each is yours. Yet grant some small acknowledgement of ours. Oh, ye high-flown quills that soar the skies, and ever with your praise still catch your praise. If e'er ye deign these lowly lines your eyes, give fine or parsley reap, I ask no bays. This mean and unrefined ore of mine will make your glistening gold but more to shine.
Right. So, what's your analysis? What did y'all come up with?
She's talking about like how it is to be a woman that writes poetry and how she won't write about wars or captains or politics or anything like that. So that's for men to write. And then she says how people think that since she's a woman, she should do house chores like sewing and that. And then she says when she does write, and it's good, the critics will just say it's stolen or that she was just lucky.
Yep. Okay. That's exactly right. So she's, what I just said, she's not going to talk about the things, captains and kings and wars and this sort of thing. She'll leave that to the men. Let poets and historians set these forth, my obscure lines shall not so dim their words. So, that means she can't, her poetry will not stand up to some of the great poets that came before her. She's very self-deprecating. So she's very modest, always very modest, like in her poetry and all. And that's kind of what she's saying here. Her poems would never be any threat to the other great poets that came before her. But when my wandering eyes and envious heart, great Bardas, remember we talked about Bardas yesterday. The Bardas, he was a French poet, and he very much inspired her. And so that's what she's talking about there. Great Bardas' sugared lines that do but read o'er. Fool, I do grudge, the muses did not part. Twixt him and me that overfluent store, a Bardas can do what a Bardas will, but simple I, according to my skill. So Bardas can do whatever he wants to because he is a great poet. But simple I, according to my skill, her poetry as compared to Bardas's will seem very simplified. So she's kind of going on, she talks about the muses several times. My fewest broken, blemished muse so sings. So her muse gave her like a broken pen, or her muse is not, is blemished. Do y'all know what a muse is? The nine muses in Greek literature. They're the muses. They were what's responsible for the arts. And I don't, because I'm not big on Greek literature. But there's like a muse for poetry, and one for stories, and one for music, and I don't really remember acting. I don't remember what all they are.
Like in Hercules, the ladies at the beginning.
Okay, yeah. So that she's saying that she got a blemished muse, so that's why her poetry is not as good as Bardas or some that came before her. Cause nature made it so irreparable, so she can't repair it. It is what it is. Nor can I, like that fluent, sweet-tongued Greek, who lisps at first, in future times speak plain. By art he gladly found, when he did seek a full requital, requital of his striving pain. So this is referring to, and I don't remember his name, but there was a Greek orator that had a lisp. Well, I mean, you're an orator and you have a lisp, that's probably not going to go too well. So, but he was able to, he was of such strong mind that he was able to cure his, or not cure it, but overcome his lisp and became this fluent orator. So she's referring back to him. But a weak or wounded brain admits no cure. However, if you have a weak brain, you can't really overcome that. I'm obnoxious to each carping tongue. He says my hand and needle better fits. This is just what Ella was saying, that those, such as William Bradford and John Winthrop, he says that a woman should not write, should not hold a pen in her hand. It should be a needle or a sewing needle or something. So she's talking about those people, a poet's pen all scorn, I should that's wrong, for such despite, they cast on female wit. If what I do prove well, it won't advance, they'll say, oh, it's stolen, or else it was by chance, what Ella was saying. If she ever did write something that was really good and was praised, then the men would just say that it was luck, she was lucky, or she had stolen it from a man. However, the antique Greeks were far more mild, else of our sex, meaning women, why feign they those nine? Talking again back to the nine muses. And Tozy made Calliope's own child. Calliope was a Greek god. I'm not 100% sure, but so amongst the rest, they placed the arts divine, but this week not. They were full soon in time. Anyway, she's talking about the nine muses. The Greeks did not, but played the fools and lie. The Greeks, well, this next part, let Greeks be Greeks and women what they are. Men have presidency, and still excel. It is but vain and justly to wage war. Men can do best and women know it well. So she's admitting, so men can do best, but she's kind of tongue in cheek. She didn't really mean that because obviously she made it very clear she did not feel that men could write better than women. So she's kind of tongue in cheek. She's very self-deprecating, but she also is poking fun. And she's also saying that the Greeks were much more, the ancient Greeks were much more accepting of women and equals the playing field of men and women much more than they currently did. So the Greeks knew what they were doing, and Greeks let the women excel. Basically, kind of what she's saying at the end. So anyway, this time or partially read, I asked no babes. That's going back to the Greeks also, that would wear the, like around their heads, they would do the time or the parts or the wreath. Anyway, okay. Edward Taylor tomorrow.
About time, boy. Yeah. See, I took that a little differently.
Oh, did you?
Because of my analysis, I thought, I leaned more towards, especially with that beginning part of it, that, yeah, she was talking down on herself, her women and stuff, and that's it. But almost as a sort of retort, like sarcastic.
Oh, yeah,
I was saying like, oh, you men are just so much better than us.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, she was self-deprecating in that. She did, I think she did believe that her work would never be as good as, say, like a Barnes or something. But she certainly was very tongue-in-cheek, and when she, would say that men wrote better than women and all this, she didn't really think that.